Splatoon 3's main weapon balance is pretty good, and there's very few weaker options, most of which still have a few situations that they're good in, but there are some weapons that just absolutely need some changes. Most of the community by now knows about the worst weapon in the game, the Undercover Brella. I mean, you could play that for like 5 minutes, look at it a little bit, and probably figure out so many problems with it. The damage is low, the kill time is bad, it struggles at breaking objects, the shield can barely tank anything, and it has a kit that just doesn't work with what the main weapon wants to do at all. You get the point. It's very easy to tell why Undercover is bad, even at a surface level, but not every weak weapon is like this, and the one we're going to talk about today, the Splattershot Pro, is much more difficult to realize just how bad a spot it's in. So today, I'm going to talk about it and break down why this weapon sees practically no use in competitive play. And if you enjoy, be sure to subscribe to help me reach 100k before the end of the year. Oh, an obvious disclaimer, if you enjoy playing this weapon or Undercover Brella, there's nothing wrong with that. Please keep playing them, it's cool. This is simply about why it's in a weaker spot balance-wise. So with that being said, let's talk about the Splattershot Pro over here. Like most Splattershots, it's the introduction to something. Junior is the introduction to the game, Splattershot to normal shooters, Nova to support shooters that we're getting in the future, and Splattershot Pro is the introduction to mid-range shooters. As such, this weapon's fairly basic and well-rounded, which sounds pretty positive, but it's actually kind of the reason it's bad. It's important to know Splatoon is a 4v4 game. Weapons with weaknesses can be made up for, such as Blaster's painting capability can be made up for by running things that can paint, and so you can play to the more extreme strengths of the weapon. But jack-of-all-trades weapons aren't exactly bad either, they're great for rounding out comps. The Splattershot is a pretty common example of this. It's just your standard short-range shooter, and it's insanely common despite not having anything super extreme to play around. Like, it's got pretty good mobility, but if you really wanted to stack into that, something like the Tetra Dually can do it significantly better. Instead, Splattershot is picked because it's good to cover things in a comp. It's a very easy fourth weapon that can do whatever you really need. So why can't Pro do that? Well, Pro and Splattershot are very similar archetypes for the specific range values, so let's compare how good their stats stack up with each other. Splattershot Pro's paint is pretty mediocre, it goes a bit far but it doesn't paint super well, while Splattershot has really good paint. The mobility is actually pretty even between the two. Pro has slightly more end lag but also a bit more range. Other prominent mid-range options have something like Tenebrella's shield or Dually Squelcher's dodge rolls to enhance their options further when dealing with people getting close to them. Pro's ink efficiency is mediocre, nothing bad, but you can't shoot for a while after throwing a bomb, while Shot actually has pretty good ink efficiency and can afford to use its bomb more often. This sounds small, but having the extra ink tank for a sub-weapon could do so many things. A bomb alone can damage objects, paint, help you deal with people running directly at you, and just overall add to more things you're doing per second. And even utility subs have a benefit. Being able to place beacons more often is really useful, or lay down mines without having to spend a ton of time recovering your ink tank. And these are all things Pro struggles with a little bit more because of its worse ink efficiency. Splattershot Pro's kill time is pretty mediocre for its range value. It's not necessarily slow, but it's not fast either, while Splattershot can laser people pretty quickly. With the ink efficiency and paint, the Splattershot Pro actually has pretty bad special output, while the Splattershot has a pretty great one. I could go on, but you're starting to see a pattern here. Splattershot for its range value is pretty good at everything, while Splattershot Pro is mediocre at everything. This means as a main weapon, it's not really going to be covering a lot. Think back to the range blaster situation I mentioned earlier. Is the Splattershot Pro really going to be your option to cover the lack of paint? Not really, so it doesn't seem to fill the same use as Splattershot could. And this is true for more traits besides paint, of course, such as needing more damage in a comp for something like Rainmaker and trying to damage the shield. Pro doesn't really have many traits that are useful to fill any holes in a comp because it's just mediocre at everything. This is already pretty problematic, but it actually gets a lot worse once we take a look at the weapon kit. Splattershot is a fairly well-rounded kit, mainly having a bomb. This provides a lot of versatility to poke enemies, help farm special, help in fights, etc. It's a good all-rounder tool for an all-rounder weapon, while Splattershot Pro has Line Marker. Which, I mean, it can finish off kills at a distance and occasionally mark people if you have insanely good aim, but is that really worth the reward? I mean, an accurate burst bomb can do 60 damage and paint over an enemy, while if you miss, you do more damage than the line marker does. Even if the sub-weapon were good though, bombs cover a lot of different things that play to the weapon's versatility, while line marker more gives a cool extreme locating and combo tool, which, while useful, doesn't really fit what Pro is. is. Line marker when good should be incredibly rewarding to hit, but would still of course be very situational, while Pro is trying to be a generalist weapon and would prefer a sub that would help in generalist situations. The special of Crab Tank is fairly well rounded and strong, but it's competing with two options it's not gonna beat. If you want really mobile comps, you have a dually with a bomb and fairly good stats, and if you want the meta pick, you can pick the Splashomatic, one of the best weapons in the game that's even better than Splattershot with perfect accuracy, slightly better mobility, and better paint, which also has the same special and a bomb. Splattershot Pro isn't bad for being abysmally terrible at something like Undercover Brella. It's bad because it doesn't have a good answer to the question, why would you pick this in a weapon comp? Even in Splatoon 2, Pro got a near perfect kit with the Kensa Pro with Splat Bomb and Booyah Bomb, and that either got outclassed by 52 because, you know, Booyah Bomb on a better shooter, or it got outclassed by other midlines because even though Pro got literal damage up, so did those other mid-range weapons, which actually were worth using outside of the damage up anyway. I don't even think I need to bring up Foil Squeezer literally just being a better version of Forge Pro, a better bomb and a better main weapon. So how do we go about fixing this? Well, there's two things they can do, one of which already happened, which is a better kit. K-Pro 2.0 is basically back with the Forge, having Suction Bomb and Booyah Bomb. Since this thing will probably be 200 or even lower, it'll be cheaper than Splatoon 2's, which will help its special output a lot. And this time, it's the only Booyah Bomb on a shooter and dually that can also paint decently, since Gluga's is kind of its own thing. Future Chara here. It didn't take very long. The gold Aerospray has Booyah Bomb. This doesn't have a bomb, so TLDR, it can't put too much pressure and it won't compete with Pro too hard, but it's gonna take away a little bit of that niche I just talked about. Because if you want Booyah output, it's much better at it than Pro, and that can be played around at least a little bit, though it's still not a very good weapon due to having Sprinkler. For now, this will help. It won't give it major use, but it'll give it a potential niche, but eventually we still have to adjust the main weapon. So what would I do with that? Well, Splattershot Pro needs to actually have good stats, not okay stats. The simplest way to go about this would be buffing the fire rate by 1 frame. This would increase its painting capability, kill time, mobility, and stuff slightly, and make its ink efficiency a little bit worse. But it wouldn't be that drastic in terms of a specific strength. It's not like we're creating damage up again, we're just making the weapon a little bit more versatile, which is what I think it should be considering it's an entry weapon. It shouldn't really have super extreme strengths. If the devs are more hesitant though, they could always slightly buff stats in small increments, such as an ink efficiency buff in one patch, and then a mobility buff in another, or a paint in one of them, and then just stop when they think it's good. This has the positive of being more incremental and is less likely to overbuff a weapon, but you do have to be more careful you don't make it too much of a special spammer and keep it being more well-rounded, which could be a bit harder. Realistically though, if the main weapon can get a bit better in terms of being well-rounded, and it already got the kit at once, I think it'll end up being a good weapon with time. But that's all my thoughts on the Splattershot Pro. Let me know what you guys think, and if you're looking forward to the Forge kit coming in the update. I'll see you guys next time.